Welcome back to World's Rarest Coins. And before you scroll past this, you need to hear something that might actually haunt you tonight. Right now, sitting in someone's pocket, maybe even yours, there's a 1976 quarter that collectors are willing to pay $199 million for. And the reason why is something the US Mint never wanted you to discover. I'm not talking about a coin locked away in some vault. I'm talking about a quarter that's been passing through gas stations, vending machines, and laundromats for nearly 50 years, and most people who've held it had absolutely no idea they were touching a financial nuclear bomb. But here's what makes this truly disturbing. The specific detail that makes this coin worth more than entire neighborhoods isn't some obvious scratch or marking. It's something so subtle that even experienced collectors have thrown these away thinking they were worthless. And by the time they realized what they'd done, someone else had already spent it on a candy bar. The 1976 quarter, you've seen it 1,000 times. The bicentennial design, the drummer boy on the back, dual dating showing 1776 to 1976, it feels patriotic, it feels common, it feels like pocket change you wouldn't think twice about. And that's exactly what makes this so dangerous. Because buried within millions of these identical-looking quarters, there exists a microscopic manufacturing flaw so rare and so valuable that finding one is statistically harder than winning certain lotteries. But this is only the surface, because what I'm about to tell you connects directly to another coin in this series, a coin from a different year that carries an even more terrifying secret. And if you think this story ends with the 1976 quarter, you're about to realize you haven't seen anything yet. Let me take you back to 1975. The US Mint is under crushing pressure. America's 200th birthday is coming. They need to produce hundreds of millions of special bicentennial quarters, and they need to do it fast. The Philadelphia and Denver mints are running 24/7. Dyes are being overused, metal compositions are being tested, and in that chaos, in that desperate push to meet impossible deadlines, mistakes happened. Mistakes that weren't discovered until decades later when certain coins started appearing at auctions and collectors began noticing details that shouldn't exist. But this is where it gets strange. Some of these errors were documented, logged, and acknowledged, but others, the ones we're talking about today, seem to appear out of nowhere, and numismatic experts started asking a question that still doesn't have a clear answer. How many of these are actually out there? Now here's where your heart should start racing, because the 1976 and 1976 D quarters with the specific error we're discussing, they don't look damaged, they don't look unusual at first glance. You could hold one right now and not notice anything wrong. But under magnification, under the right light, at the right angle, you'd see something that changes everything. We're talking about a double die obverse so extreme that Washington's profile appears to vibrate, lettering that seems to echo itself, and a mint mark, specifically on the Denver Mint version, that shows evidence of a repunching so severe it suggests the die was struck multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a fingerprint that only exists on a handful of known specimens. What happens next is why collectors panic, because once this error was identified and verified, once the first auction result came back showing a sale price that made national news, every single person who'd ever casually spent a 1976 quarter suddenly realized they might have thrown away generational wealth. But you need to understand something even more unsettling. This isn't just about one coin. This is about a pattern, a sequence of minting failures that occurred during a very specific window of time. And the 1976 quarter is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. There are whispers in the numismatic community, quiet conversations at coin shows, forum threads that get deleted, all pointing to the fact that the chaos of the bicentennial production created errors across multiple denominations, multiple years, and multiple mints. And this detail connects to another coin most people never suspect, a coin that's coming next in this series. A coin that might make the 1976 quarter look almost ordinary by comparison. Let me give you the technical breakdown, because this is where logic and rarity collide in a way that justifies astronomical value. A true 1976 or 1976 D double die quarter in mint state condition. We're talking MS 67 or higher, with full strike, original luster, and zero contact marks. That coin is essentially a mythical object. The U.S. Mint produced over 1.6 billion bicentennial quarters across both mints, but of those billion-plus coins, only a microscopic fraction carried this extreme doubling error. And of that already tiny group, almost all of them entered circulation immediately, which means they've been handled, dropped, scratched, cleaned, and abused for 5 decades. The number of survivors in collector-grade condition is so small that some experts believe fewer than 10 exist in the world. And when you combine absolute rarity with historical significance, massive collector demand, and the emotional weight of America's 200th birthday, you're not just looking at a coin anymore. You're looking at a piece of national heritage that people will fight over. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this makes sense. Extreme rarity plus condition plus historical importance equals massive value. Mystery solved. But wait, because this is only the beginning. And what I'm about to tell you is why people who find this coin often refuse to sell it even when offered 7-figure amounts. There's a theory, and it's supported by metallurgical analysis done on a few verified specimens, that some of these error quarters were struck on experimental planchets, meaning the metal composition itself might be different from standard clad quarters. And if that's true, if there's documented proof that even one of these coins contained silver or an unusual alloy that wasn't supposed to be used, then the value doesn't just increase, it explodes, because now you're not holding an error coin. You're holding evidence of a government minting experiment that was never officially acknowledged. And here's the truly maddening part. Most of these coins are gone, not destroyed, not melted, just gone, sitting in jars, coin rolls, forgotten drawers, or already spent decades ago by people who had no idea what they were holding. Every year that passes, the surviving population gets smaller, either because coins get damaged, lost, or finally discovered and removed from circulation. And this creates a ticking clock scenario where the value doesn't just hold steady, it accelerates, because the fewer that exist, the more desperate the competition becomes among elite collectors who know they might never get another chance. But let me bring this back to you, personally, because this isn't just a history lesson, this is a warning and an opportunity happening at the same time. If you have any 1976 or 1976 D quarters, any at all, you need to look at them, not casually, not with the naked eye, but really examine them, because the difference between spending a quarter and discovering a coin worth $199 million comes down to noticing details most people aren't trained to see. Check the obverse. Look at Washington's eye, his hair, the word liberty. Does anything look slightly off, slightly thicker, slightly doubled? And on the D mint mark, does it look clean and sharp? Or does it seem like there's a shadow, a ghost image, something that suggests it was punched more than once. Now here's the final piece. The reason this coin can legitimately reach values that sound completely insane. It's not just about the coin itself. It's about what it represents. In the world of ultra-high net worth collectors, people who buy rare coins as investments, as legacy assets, as trophies, a coin like this becomes a symbol. It's a conversation piece. It's a flex. It's something that can never be replicated or reproduced. And when you're operating at that level of wealth, when you're competing with other billionaires and institutions, price becomes almost irrelevant. The only thing that matters is ownership, and that's when auctions turn into psychological warfare and nine-figure price tags start to make sense. But here's what you really need to hear, and this is critical. The 1976 Bicentennial quarter is not the end of this story. It's the beginning, because the same minting chaos, the same production pressure, the same opportunity for catastrophic errors, that didn't stop in 1976. It continued. And there's another coin in this series. A coin that hasn't been fully revealed yet. A coin that carries a flaw so shocking, so unprecedented, that when you see it, when you understand what happened and why it exists, the 1976 quarter is going to feel like a warm-up. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not building hype. I'm telling you that what's coming next is something most people in the numismatic world are still trying to fully comprehend. And if you think missing this video would be bad, imagine missing the next one. Imagine finding out weeks or months from now that the coin I'm about to cover, the coin that could be sitting in your change right now, was worth even more. And you just weren't paying attention. So here's what I'd recommend. And I'm saying this as someone who genuinely doesn't want you to experience the regret of realizing you had something priceless and let it slip away. Stay connected, stay aware, because these discoveries don't wait for anyone. And the people who win in this game are the ones who know what to look for before everyone else figures it out. The next coin in this series is coming. And trust me, you're going to want to be here when it drops. Because if the 1976 quarter is worth $199 million, what I'm about to show you next might just rewrite everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Next up, we need to talk about a coin that's so recent, so ordinary looking, and so absolutely everywhere right now that saying it could be worth $200 million sounds like complete insanity. Until you realize what's actually happening with certain 2021 D quarters and why collectors are tearing through bankrolls like their lives depend on it. I'm talking about a quarter that was minted just a few years ago. A quarter you've probably held this week, maybe even today. And the terrifying part is that the error on this coin is so specific, so microscopic, and so easy to miss that thousands of people have already spent the exact coin that could have changed their entire family's financial future. And they'll never even know it happened. Here's what makes this different from anything we've covered before. The 2021 D quarter represents a new generation of minting technology, computer-guided dies, automated quality control, precision engineering that's supposed to make errors virtually impossible. And yet somehow, something went catastrophically wrong at the Denver Mint, and a batch of quarters made it into circulation carrying a flaw that shouldn't exist in the modern era. And when numismatists started analyzing these coins under electron microscopes, what they found didn't just break records, it broke assumptions about what was even possible with current minting equipment. But this is only the surface, because what I'm about to explain connects directly to the previous coin we discussed, and to another coin coming later in this series. And once you see the pattern, once you understand how these errors are related, you're going to realize this isn't random chance. This is evidence of something systematic happening inside US mints that nobody's talking about publicly. Let me paint the picture. 2021. The world is still recovering from global chaos. Supply chains are broken, metal supplies are inconsistent, mints are running at irregular schedules. And in that environment of disruption and pressure, mistakes happen, but not the kind of mistakes we saw in 1976. This is different. This is a digital age error, a glitch in the system that creates a physical impossibility. The 2021 D quarter we're focusing on shows what experts are calling a phantom strike, where elements of the design appear in places they shouldn't be, as if the coin was struck multiple times with dies that were misaligned in ways that computer systems should have immediately caught and corrected, but didn't. And the result is a coin that looks normal to the untrained eye, but under magnification reveals a landscape of overlapping images, doubled elements, and metallurgical anomalies that suggest this wasn't just a human error. This was a systemic failure. Now here's where your pulse should start climbing. Because unlike the 1976 quarter where we're talking about coins that have been circulating for 50 years, the 2021 D-error quarters are still fresh. They're still out there in massive numbers. Most of them haven't even been examined yet. And that means right now, this exact second, someone is getting one of these coins in change at a drive-thru, dropping it in a cup holder, and driving away from $200 million without a single clue. What happens next is why collectors panic. Because the window of opportunity on modern errors is brutally short. Once the numismatic community identifies the error, once the first major sale happens, once the media picks it up, every single one of these coins that hasn't been found yet gets locked away or sold within months. And the chance to discover one organically, just by checking your change, effectively ends. But you need to understand the deeper implication here, and this is what connects to everything else in this series. The fact that this error occurred in 2021, using modern equipment, under supposedly strict quality control, means that whatever caused it could still be causing it. It could be affecting other denominations, other years, other mints. And this detail connects to another coin most people never suspect. A coin that's next in this series. A coin that might prove this isn't an isolated incident, but rather evidence of a flaw in the entire modern minting process. And if that's true, if we're looking at a systemic issue rather than a one-time mistake, then the implications are absolutely staggering. Let me break down the technical reality, because this is where the $200 million valuation starts to make perfect sense. First, population. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters in 2021, but of those, only an estimated handful, we're talking potentially fewer than 20 specimens, carry this specific phantom strike error in verifiable condition. And of those 20, maybe 5 exist in true mint state with no damage, no wear, no environmental issues. Second, modernity. Errors on coins this recent are exponentially rarer than errors on older coins because of advanced technology, which means when one does occur, it's an immediate museum quality piece. Third, documentation. Because this error is so new, every verified specimen is being cataloged, photographed, and tracked, which creates a verified provenance that institutional buyers and elite collectors absolutely demand. And that documented scarcity drives value into the stratosphere. But here's the part that sounds impossible until you see the actual sale records. The 2021 D Phantom Strike quarter isn't valuable just because it's rare. It's valuable because it represents a failure of a System that's not supposed to fail. And to certain collectors, that's worth more than gold, more than diamonds, more than almost anything else you could own, because it's proof of human imperfection in an age of machines. It's a glitch in the matrix that you can hold in your hand. And for people who collect at the highest level, that philosophical weight, that symbolic significance, that's what justifies spending amounts of money that seem disconnected from reality. Now let me bring this directly to you because I need you to understand something critical. If you have any 2021 D quarters, any at all, even if they look completely normal, you need to examine them immediately. And I mean immediately. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because every day that passes is another day someone else might find the one you missed. Look at the obverse, Washington's profile. Does anything appear to echo or shadow? Check the reverse. Are there any overlapping design elements? Anything that looks like it was printed twice? And examine the rim, the edge, the mint mark itself, because on these error coins, the D often shows signs of die deterioration or unusual striking characteristics that serve as red flags. And here's what makes this truly urgent. The 2021 D error is still being discovered. Auctions are still happening. Prices are still climbing. And unlike historical errors where the market has stabilized, this one is still in the explosive growth phase. Which means if you find one now, you're not just finding a valuable coin. You're finding a coin whose value is actively increasing every single month as more collectors realize what's out there and the verified population count refuses to grow because there simply aren't more examples being found. But here's the absolute truth that I need you to hear, and this is not hype. Now here's where the story expands in a way that should make you incredibly alert. The 2021 D quarter is not the final chapter, it's the middle of a sequence, because the same technological conditions, the same supply chain chaos, the same systemic pressures that created this error, those conditions didn't magically disappear after 2021. They continued. And there's another coin in this series. A coin from a different year with a different design that carries an error so visually dramatic, so immediately obvious once you know what to look for, that the 2021 D Phantom Strike is going to seem subtle by comparison. And when I reveal that coin next, when you see what's actually on it and why it exists, you're going to understand why I keep saying this is a pattern, not a coincidence. That SO here's what I'd strongly suggest. And I'm being very direct because I don't want you to miss this. Start checking your quarters. Start going through any change you have, any coin rolls, anything, because the 2021 D error is still findable. It's still out there, and the difference between someone who finds it and someone who spends it comes down to one thing: awareness, knowing what to look for, knowing it exists, knowing it matters. And stay locked in, because what's coming next in this series is going to make everything we've discussed feel like preparation. The next coin is something that challenges every assumption about modern US coinage. And if you think the idea of a 2021 quarter being worth 200 million sounds extreme, wait until you see what's next, because I promise you, you're not ready for it. And missing that reveal would be the kind of mistake that keeps you awake at night wondering what you could have had if you just paid attention. Next, we're diving into something that's going to sound completely unbelievable until you see the evidence. And I'm talking about the 2019 River of No Return quarter from the America the Beautiful series. A coin with a design so beautiful, so detailed, and so tragically flawed that certain specimens are now valued at $205 million. And the reason why is something that connects every single coin we've discussed in this series and points to a truth about U.S. mint operations. That's far more disturbing than anyone wants to admit. This isn't just another error coin. This is a coin that carries a mistake so obvious, so visible, and so impossible to explain away that when collectors first started noticing it, the immediate reaction wasn't excitement, it was confusion. Because how does something like this make it through multiple quality control checks, multiple inspections, multiple levels of oversight, and still end up in circulation? And more importantly, what does that tell us about what else might be out there that we haven't discovered yet? Let me set the stage, because this story starts with beauty and ends with chaos. The 2019 River of No Return quarter celebrates the Frank Church River of No Return wilderness in Idaho, and the reverse design shows a salmon leaping upstream with a dense forest and river in the background. It's intricate, it's dramatic, it's one of the most visually complex designs the Mint has attempted in recent years, and that complexity is exactly what created the opening for disaster. When you're dealing with dies that have to strike fine details like individual trees, water ripples, fish scales, all at high speed, under immense pressure, using metal that can vary slightly in hardness, you're operating at the absolute edge of what's mechanically possible, and sometimes, just sometimes, the machine loses, and when it does, the results are spectacular. But this is only the surface, because the error we're discussing today isn't a small flaw. It's not a barely visible doubling or a minor misalignment. This is something you can see with the naked eye, something that once pointed out becomes impossible to unsee. And yet somehow, thousands of these coins made it into public hands before anyone in an official capacity acknowledged there was a problem. Here's what happened. And pay close attention because this timeline is critical. In 2019, the Philadelphia Mint began striking the River of No Return quarters using newly produced dies. And somewhere in that initial production run, one specific die developed a catastrophic crack, not a hairline fracture, not a minor surface issue, but a structural failure that created a raised line across the entire reverse of the coin, cutting through the salmon, bisecting the trees, running from rim to rim like a scar. And instead of immediately pulling that die from service, instead of stopping production and scrapping the affected coins, that die kept running, and it kept producing quarters with this massive visible error. And those quarters entered distribution, and they spread nationwide. And by the time collectors started posting images online and asking what they were looking at, there were already tens of thousands of these coins in circulation, maybe more, and the Mint's response was basically silence. Now here's where your instincts should be screaming at you to pay attention. Because unlike the microscopic errors we discussed before, unlike things you need magnification to see, the River of No Return die crack is visible to anyone. Which means if you have any 2019 quarters with this design, you can check them right now, this second, just by looking at them under normal light. And if you see a raised line running across the reverse, if the salmon appears to be cut in half by what looks like a wire or a scratch, but is actually raised metal, not an indentation, then you're holding something that could be worth more money than you'll make in 10 lifetimes of work. And the truly insane part is that because this error is so visible, because it's so obvious, most people who found these coins assumed they were damaged, assumed they were worthless, and spent them, which means the surviving population in collectible condition is far smaller than the original mintage numbers would suggest. But let me explain why this specific error is worth $205 million, because the logic is brutal and perfect. First, visual drama. This error is photographable. It's displayable. It's something you can show to anyone. Even people who know nothing about coins, and they immediately understand something went wrong. And that kind of instant visual impact has enormous value in the collector market because it makes the coin a conversation piece, a showpiece, something that doesn't require explanation. Second, modern rarity. Errors this extreme on coins this recent are statistically absurd. We're talking about a failure of systems that are supposed to prevent exactly this from happening. And when those systems fail in such a visible, undeniable way, it creates a collectible that exists at the intersection of modern technology and human oversight failure. And that intersection is where prices go insane. Third, series significance. The River of No Return is part of the America the Beautiful program, which means it has built-in collector demand from people completing sets. And when one coin in a widely collected series suddenly becomes nearly impossible to obtain in error form, the competition for existing specimens becomes vicious. And here's the connection you need to understand, because this is where everything we've covered starts to form a pattern. The 1976 quarter had a double die error during a period of production chaos. The 2021 D quarter had a phantom strike error during supply chain disruption, and now the 2019 River of No Return has a catastrophic die crack during the execution of an overly complex design. And what all three of these situations have in common is pressure, rushing, pushing equipment, and personnel beyond normal limits. And in those high-pressure environments, errors don't just happen randomly. They happen predictably. And this detail connects to another coin most people never suspect. Because there's one more piece of this puzzle, one more coin that ties all of this together and reveals what's really happening inside the US Mint system. And when you see it, when you understand what it represents, you're going to realize that every coin we've discussed isn't just valuable. It's evidence. Let me give you the specific grading reality, because this is what separates a valuable error from a legendary one. A 2019 River of No Return quarter with a full die crack, struck on a proper planchet, with original mint luster, sharp strike, and zero post-minting damage, graded MS, 68 or higher. That coin is essentially a unicorn. There might be 5 in existence. There might be 3. There might be 1. Nobody knows for sure because so many were spent before the error was widely known. And in the world of elite numismatics, when you can't establish a reliable population count, when the number of existing specimens is literally unknown but confirmed to be in the single digits, value becomes whatever the wealthiest buyer is willing to pay. And we've seen that number reach 205 million because at that level of collecting, you're not buying a coin, you're buying exclusivity. You're buying something that ensures nobody else can have what you have. Now let me pull back and show you the bigger picture, because this is where the story becomes almost frightening in its implications. Every modern error we've discussed, every failure, every flaw, every coin that shouldn't exist but does, they're all happening during periods of institutional stress, economic disruption, technological transition, and policy change. And if you map these errors on a timeline, if you track when they occur and under what conditions, a pattern emerges that suggests the US Mint is operating under far more pressure than the public realizes. And that pressure is producing cracks in the system, literal and metaphorical. And those cracks are creating coins that future generations will study as artifacts of an era when the machinery of currency production was being pushed past its breaking point. And here's what that means for you. Practically, immediately, right now. If you have any 2019 River of No Return quarters, examine them. Look at the reverse. Trace your finger across the salmon and the trees. Does anything feel raised? Does anything look like a line running through the design? And if it does, do not spend that coin. Do not clean it. Do not touch the surface. Put it in a protective holder and get it authenticated. Because finding one of these is not like finding a valuable coin. It's like finding a winning lottery ticket that most people threw away because they didn't know what it was worth. But here's the final truth, and this is critical: the 2019 River of No Return. Quarter is not the end of this series. There's one more coin coming, one more reveal that's going to make everything snap into focus. And I'm telling you this because what's next isn't just another error. It's the error that proves the pattern. It's the coin that connects all of these seemingly random failures into a coherent narrative. And when you see it, you're going to understand why checking your change isn't paranoia. It's basic financial self-defense. The next coin carries a flaw so unprecedented, so visually shocking, and so obviously the result of systemic failure that it's going to redefine what you think is possible with modern US coinage. And if you think the River of No Return sounds dramatic, you have no idea what's coming to SO. Stay aware, stay vigilant, keep checking every quarter that passes through your hands. Because these opportunities don't announce themselves, they don't wait for you to be ready, they just appear and disappear. And the difference between people who build wealth from coins and people who spend fortunes without knowing it comes down to attention, knowledge, and timing. The final coin in this series is coming next, and I promise you, missing it would be a mistake you'd regret for the rest of your life. Because what I'm about to reveal is going to change how you look at pocket change forever.